So one of the things I think we really need to stress when we're discussing this situation is how absurd it is that the administration and our federal government has joined so quickly on to the culture war in attempting to justify this instance. We on the previous show, we read to you Donald Trump's statements on the matter, how he claimed that the ICE agent was lucky to be alive and was recovering in the hospital. Of course, video then after completely disproved that, given the ICE agent was walking comfortably fine. And even with the new footage out, calling the woman he had just shot in the face a, quote, fucking bitch immediately then after, downplays our entire government and state narrative on this. And I think it shouldn't be discounted when it's utterly absurd. The idea that our government, when a federal agent ends up killing an American citizen, the first thing they do is jump onto the culture war in an attempt to defend it before an investigation has been made, before there's any sort of charges brought, if charges ought to be brought, which of course in this case I think they ought to have been, or before there's any sort of judge ruling, right? What happens in the just circumstance that an investigation does occur and this officer is held accountable by the law, by the fullest extent of the law, right? What happens worst case scenario for this officer, best case scenario for justice, where this person is tried and convicted of murder? Then you're just going to have an entire administration that openly defended a clear-cut case of murder. Not just that, but of course, the entire right-wing media ecosystem. But I think what is fundamentally different in this case is specifically the fact that the administration is so quick to defend it, jump on the culture train. We have the DHS, once again, the DHS Twitter feed posting about how much they, how proudly they back the ICE agent who committed this atrocity. So one of the impediments in terms of the investigation is we have this news. This article's out of PBS. Minnesota officials say they can't access evidence after fatal ICE shooting, and FBI won't work jointly on the investigation. So just a little bit of background. Minnesota, in terms of its state, local law enforcement governance, as well as Minneapolis law enforcement governance, those two are the ones that are, if any accountability is going to be held, those are the sort of the local governances that we have to look to for an investigation and charges and hopefully an indictment. It's not going to come from the federal level. Now, ICE may attempt to have the officer tried at a federal level, and if that's the case, so be it. But regardless, if this person is charged with which they obviously should be, it's going to be charged within Minnesota jurisdiction. So Minnesota investigations said Thursday that the U.S. Attorney's Office has prevented it from taking part in an investigation into Immigration and Customs Enforcement officers' fatal shooting of Minneapolis woman Renee Good, a 37-year-old mother of three. So that, of course, gleams to me as a clear red flag and a true indictment of this person's behavior. The investigation would now be led solely by the FBI, and the BCA would no longer have access to case materials, scene evidence, or investigative interviews necessary to complete a thorough and independent investigation, Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension and Superintendent Drew Evans said in a statement. It's clear that they're trying to cover this up. I don't know how, and this is part of the other interesting facet of this entire story, is we're all seeing the same videos at this point from multiple angles, and yet each side of the country, or I would really say most sane people, would come to the conclusion that this was an unjust killing, that this was in fact murder. But yet you have this entire right-wing media ecosystem that feels vindicated after they've seen the video. So let's jump actually straight into that video. CNN initially came out with a new angle. Now, of course, this has sort of been overtook by the fact that a subsequent video later came out showing from the ICE agent's officer's position, which we're going to jump into here in a second. But first, I want to take a look at this angle that came out of CNN. And this angle you see from the position facing towards the car. Now, it is from a distance. There is a bit of blurriness in terms of the level of quality from said video, but let's go ahead and take a look.
As the vehicle passes, you can see the dark colored SUV driven by Renee Good. That's on the right there in the back. The surveillance video taken by a home nearby. Agents can be seen milling about near the vehicle, then converging on it. And then you see right there the SUV begins to move, and that's when the shots are fired.
So you'll see this video is slowed down. One thing that I think is damning in terms of evidence against this agent and officer from this video perspective
Surveillance video taken by
is you get a clear and concise image
home nearby. Agents can be seen
that the wheels were completely turned away. You in fact see the wheels completely turned off to the side in this image.
On it. And then
of course, by the time the firing starts,
agents can be seen milling about near the vehicle, then converging on it. And then
by the time the officer begins to fire, he's almost entirely off to the side of the vehicle. So now let's get into what also came out of this right-wing news agency, Alpha News. You know, reporting on this, coming out with this video. Much of what we saw from the initial video on this matter was the reported ICE agent had what appeared to be a phone out. So this may either be the body cam footage or this may be the video from this ICE agent's phone. And what is interesting about this video in particular is you actually get at least 30 seconds of context before the shooting actually occurs. So we're gonna go ahead and watch this video now.
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former fucking president. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the car.
Oh!
Fucking bitch.
So there's a few reasons why I think the conservative media ecosystem feels as though this vindicates them. And that is that the moment the car begins to accelerate, you sort of hear what appears to be and may in fact be contact. There's a wide range of discussions as to whether or not the vehicle actually struck the officer, to what extent they struck the officer. Now it's hard to tell given what I mentioned earlier, as this could in fact be a phone video. Obviously any contact made with a phone, including that of a hand, will make the sound of contact. But the officer clearly expresses almost excitement or worry or, some version of emotion that would convey he didn't expect the car to be accelerating that quick. Now, what does not vindicate the officer, and what is actually very, very relevant if in a court of law, is when the last words you hear out of Renee and the words that you hear of her in this video is as this officer is circling around this vehicle, recording this vehicle, Renee says to him,
That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you.
She says, "That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you." Now, that does actually become relevant as to the state of mind of the agent in this case, because Renee in no way appears to or expresses to be any sort of lethal threat. In fact, she seems very kind and composed in this video. And then what you see later on is that it's as soon as the other agents begin to approach her vehicle, demand that she get out, come up to the door and attempt to open it, that's when she begins to very, very clearly in this video turn her wheels all the way. You'll notice she turns her wheels completely off. In this case, it would be to her right, but to the officer's left. And that is exactly why, after she was shot and killed, the car ended up proceeding away from the officer and turning right, and then eventually, of course, began to crash. If this woman was aiming to run this man over, she would have been staring him dead in the eye and turned it a little bit to accelerate in straight ahead in front of her, which is where the officer was. But of course, you see from this video, she's turning the wheel in its entirety. We'll watch one more time.
Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the car.
And then, of course, 3 shots fired. And you can also see from this angle, by the time the car begins to accelerate, he's already off to the side. And there's no reason for pulling out your weapon in this case. Like, I think, like, if you were to take the most charitable position in terms of what this officer's state of mind is, it's that this woman accelerated a little quickly and he was right there and he had to get out of the way a little quickly, and it was a little startling. That's essentially what you can glean from this. But to the administration and to, the conservative political media ecosystem, this woman is somehow a cold-blooded murderer, which is outrageous. And it's disgusting. And they want to gaslight you into believing that was her state of mind. I saw tweets earlier calling this, saying how sad it was that this woman felt the visceral need and hatred in her heart to want to murder this man. But in this video, you clearly can hear her say something to the effect of, "I'm not mad at you. It's okay, dude. I'm not mad at you." Those were her final words. And then the officer who shot her, his words immediately after she died were, if you didn't hear that, he said "fucking bitch." That's what that is what his state of mind was in terms of her. So Jessica Tarlov, who is a Fox News contributor, is somebody who's essentially Fox News's token centrist, if that makes sense. She's actually willing to go against the official Republican narrative on very many issues. Listen to her break this down.
But the footage contradicts the administration on almost every level of what they've said. Renee Good waving the vehicle by. The officer was to the side of the car when he drew the gun. He leaned over the hood for the first shot. You can see that on the angle too. That he fired 2 more shots at arm's length on a 90-degree angle. And it almost doesn't matter, actually, what she was doing, because she didn't have another weapon. According to DOJ policy, which they should be in compliance with, it says deadly force may not be used solely to prevent the escape of a fleeing suspect. Firearms must be discharged at a moving vehicle unless a person is threatening deadly force by other means than the vehicle, and no other means of defense exist, including moving out of the path. He could clearly move out of the path because he did, and that's why he was unscathed in this. I don't know why it wasn't good enough for Secretary Noem or the president or the vice president to say, this is a tragedy, we need to investigate this. And not only do we need to investigate it, we need the FBI to work with local officials on the ground in Minnesota, which apparently they do not want to do. And Governor Walz was talking about that as well. That would have been the responsible thing to do here. And talking as if there is no potential that this officer is at fault with what happened feels like you're getting a little bit ahead of your skis, especially when there is so much footage that contradicts the story that the administration is giving.
couldn't have said it better myself. What she says there at the end, those last few sentences, is exactly the point I was making earlier. Okay, this administration is so quick to defend their ICE agents, right? When no investigation has been made, no conclusions have been drawn from said investigation, and if an investigation does find that charges ought to be brought to this ICE agent, and if charges are brought, and if this man is later convicted of some sort of degree of murder, well then great. The administration has just blatantly backed and defended the murder of an American citizen overtly in a clear case, right? But that's not what the administration chose to do. The administration didn't choose to say, this is a tragedy, we're doing our best to investigate the matter, and then maybe after certain facts come out that back whatever the ICE agent's narrative would be, then they can play culture war, then they can do the dance of he feared for his life. But they didn't even attempt to wait on it, right? Their reflexive tendency was to say, not only did this ICE officer, well, not only was he justified in murdering this woman, but that this woman was a domestic terrorist. Those are words from our vice president. Those are words from Stephen Miller. Those are words from Donald Trump, calling this woman a domestic terrorist, saying that she was deliberately attempting to run over and murder this officer, when none of that can be gleaned from now all of the video evidence that we currently have. And so this is going to this is going to be a big testament to America's criminal justice system in the face of scrutiny. We've seen countless cases in which that system has failed, and then we've seen other cases in which public outcry may have, led to such a degree of pressure where there is accountability held, such as the case of Derek Chauvin and George Floyd, which happened, of course, in the same city as Renee Good has now been killed. But what is fundamentally different now in this case, and I do think that the nation is extraordinarily upset at this matter, and Republicans are acting as though they don't have another election to come, because the way that they're defending this is not going to look good for any sensible human being or person. So the way that the public outcry is now happening, though, the same pressure can't apply as it did in George Floyd, right? There was something very unique about the case of BLM in that it was summer and it was COVID. People had free time and people were able to go out in the streets and express themselves. And I know a lot of the 2020 COVID protests have been overshadowed by a right-wing talking point that this was essentially riot, city burning and looting, and that's all that ended up happening. But 99% of those protests were peaceful demonstrations, and they were the largest peaceful demonstrations in American history. Okay, that is what occurred. That is the takeaway that we should really acknowledge from 2020, is that when people have time, when they get upset over injustices such as this one, they want to participate in a form of protest and demonstration. So it's hard to imagine the same level of pressure being applied in this case, because it's winter, because people have jobs, because it's in early January and schools returning and this and that, and for that, the administration benefits from not only this, but a news cycle that has been overwhelming and consuming us day in and day out, right? We're already moving on from Venezuela, right? A historic regime change operation, an interventionist ploy and coup that occurred in an extraordinarily unpopular and unjust and illegal fashion, right? We're already moved on from that because of the violence that the United States is perpetuating on its own citizens here at home.